come down to just being somebody with a disability, but also being somebody from the South Asian community. Both communities, I feel like, have always been underrepresented.
How did you learn and how do you teach people this idea of quieting your own mind and still doing it despite our tendency to catastrophize things?
Live a life where you don't have as many regrets and you're showing up fully happy with your choices, owning your choices, feeling good about those choices.
The minute we lose our happiness for the fight, we become susceptible to fear-mongering. We become susceptible to anger.
I say this about every episode, Dinesh, but today I really mean it. It's a special.
It really is a special episode. Why? What? But wait, why is it special for you?
It's special for us, right? Huh? I feel like I'm like the wife expecting you to know that it's a specific day and
podcast wife.
I am your podcast wife. I actually joke with people and I tell them you're my work husband. Yeah, it is a special thing for us because listeners, this is our 100th episode.
Wow, 100th episode. Listeners, the reason that's special for us is, being in the podcasting world for 18 months now or so, it is a totally different world than I was used to as being a lawyer or an engineer or a dad or anything else I was doing. Some of the wild parts were sort of made evident when we were at the Signal Awards, which we won in New York City. But here's why 100 episodes are important. 90% of podcasts don't make it past 3 episodes. No, sorry, 10% of episodes only make it to 21 episodes, 10% of podcasts. And only 1% of all podcasts out there reach 100 episodes. And so what does this mean for us? Why is it important for us? It means that we've demonstrated consistency, commitment, and real impact. And listeners, we're going to keep showing up every week.
Absolutely. We talk about how it's so important not to show up with intensity necessarily, but consistency and having that focus and that passion and curiosity and all of those wonderful things to continue making magic happen. Dinesh, thank you for showing up with me every single week.
No, my pleasure. And a huge thank you to everyone who's listened to us, shared our episodes, supported us. 100 episodes is rare. We couldn't have done it without you. And for today's episode, we wanted to bring on a guest who is emblematic of what we're trying to do here, which is, ladies and gentlemen, the Happy and Human podcast is no longer an experiment. We are moving into rare air territory where it's now a movement. And to that end, we have Avi Dhyani, who is our guest today. And shout out to Neha Dewan, who was on here to talk about why it was important to vote during the recent elections. Neha introduced us to Avi, and once we learned about Avi, we knew we just had to bring him on. He is such an inspiration. And I'm just going to have Avi give us a short introduction. But Avi, the reason that you are here is because of Neha, and Neha told us just how much you've accomplished in a very short time. So start us off and tell us how old you are and what you're currently doing.
All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Avi Dhyani, and before I start, shout out to Neha Dewan. She is amazing, true fighter for the people. So love you, Neha. So I am a first-year public policy student at Cornell University. I'm also a passionate, I never like to say the words activist because I think it's something you are given and not you say you're activist, but people call you an activist. But in a nutshell, and for simplicity, that's what I do. I advocate for democratic causes up and down the ballot and work to help get Democrats elected to office. I was a DNC delegate in 2024. I've worked on many campaigns starting for, I can't believe it's been 4 years ago in 2020. And just really passionate about making our electoral system and electing people who are going to help us be great and, well, actually not great, but just be amazing.
Yeah, so good, so good.
You were actually the youngest, right? The youngest delegate. Wow. Guys, listeners, before the show, we had this whole mix up with delicate and delegate, and thanks. Now I'm all mixed up. But you were the youngest delegate at the DNC.
Yes, from Georgia. There's actually, I think, one or two other delegates that beat me out for the title, but no worry. Just love seeing all the young people that were at the DNC.
So you also were chairman of the College Democrats of America, AANHPI caucus, and you interned for Congresswoman Williams and Senator Ossoff, right?
Yes, I am. For the internships, I interned this previous summer, which was 2024 for Senator Ossoff.
Yeah.
That spring, I interned for Congresswoman Williams, and have been, and currently am the chairman for the AANHPI caucus for the College Democrats of America.
Amazing. So, and then you also said that you started, becoming involved in politics and campaigns as far back as 2020, which is 4 years ago. So, for the Biden-Harris campaign, right?
Yes.
And if I do my math, and it's getting harder to do math as I get older, that would make you about 14 years old.
Yeah, 14, 15, 14. Right around there.
Yeah. Where did your interest in public policy, in politics, and more so your belief in making America and Americans as a South Asian, making America amazing come from? Because I remember at 14 and 15, I was just concerned with playing the latest video game, drinking as much Pepsi as I possibly can, or Coke, and staying up as late as I can and seeing what trouble I can get into. Where did this belief came from that you feel that your contributions can make a difference, can make an impact?
Yeah, but before I got to say it, Coke is the only thing that is good. From Atlanta, headquarters of Coke. So
Yeah.
you should only be drinking Coke around or near me. No talk of Pepsi. But
We should be sponsored by Coke. We should be fun. But ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you that he's only saying that because he's from Georgia. And yes, Coke is headquarters in Georgia. And so Avi is a Coke fan, right?
Yes. All jokes aside though, so this interest for politics, I started in middle school. While my first campaign was in high school, I got my initial interest by watching late night comedy shows in middle school because I had to for homework. So we're talking about Trevor Noah, Colbert, Fallon, and around the time a lot of their comedy had to deal with Donald Trump and stuff he was doing. So I get addicted to them, and basically I'm seeing every day a new action that I don't like. I think it's been clear from this podcast. I'm a Democrat. I believe I'm on the opposite end of Donald Trump. And I think he's very dangerous for the stuff he does is very dangerous and completely against the morals of what this country stands for, the land of immigrants. That to say, after a time, I'm like, okay, and this is during COVID, so I had nothing else going on. I'm like, I could either sit here and be scared and think we're going in the wrong direction, or as a person of this country, as someone who will live here and die here, I could work to make a change.
Mhm.
So my dad knew a friend running for Congress, and I interned on his campaign.
Mm.
And ultimately, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the work we did, the impact we had, and from there, I just kept going. So I was first my dad's friend, my local state house rep, Biden Harris campaign in 2020, on and on and on. And that's how we ended up here today in a nutshell.
That's amazing. I'm thinking about my own version of what I used to be as a kid, and I'm thinking about my own kids, my own nieces and nephews, and their friends. A lot of times, the message that we got growing up is, well, you're too young for that. But that clearly, if you did get that message from either in your head or outside of you, it wasn't one that you listened to. And that to me is really remarkable. What made you say, you know what? I don't have to be 18. I don't have to be a college graduate. I don't have to have a steady job with a, certain title or a certain amount of income. You stood up and took action despite all of the reasons many people would say you shouldn't.
Yeah, and I'm going to be completely honest. Part of it was, I really think, like, when we talk about, another thing is I try to be very spiritual, religious, and kind of going on that end, like, the idea that, okay, your life, it's, there's such a thing as destiny, but there's also, like, God guides you where he wants you.
Yeah.
So kind of when I fell in love initially with that politics, a lot of the roles I worked on, the people I met, were by chance. And I started to realize I am somehow on this path because if, like, okay, to get this job, I needed to know this person. To know this person, I met them here. This person invited me here, and after you, the line keeps on going. Like, if that did not happen,
Yeah.
where I am today would not have happened.
Right.
So after realizing that, I'm like, okay, I don't care who says what. This is what I want to do. And also, the second part to that question, I've had great mentors. People like, I just want to shout them out: Dante Carter, Ernest Boston Jr., most of all, my mother, who supported me and taught me I could do anything.
Mhm.
So it was a combination of those factors.
That's a really powerful perspective to have, that chance encounters can lead to a lot of things, and to 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 make the chance encounters happen, you have to put yourself out there and you have to be in the path of opportunities. But Avi, before we go on with the episode, one thing we like to ask our guests, because this is primarily an audio platform and sometimes people watch it on YouTube, and people will look up our guests. At the end, we'll give you a chance to let people know where they can connect with you. But sometimes people will Google our guests and find out what they're up to, and they'll get your bio and they'll get your background and things like that. But we like to go deeper here. We like to get to know the person so that we can understand what drives them from a deeper place, what motivates them, how are they able to be so resilient. Because I just saw a quote about some ancient philosopher that said, if you change the name, the story is the same. Right? I forget who that was. What is the backstory about you that we can't find on Google?
So that's a little difficult, and here's why I'm saying this. I'm pretty much open book, so, like, yes, on my LinkedIn you wouldn't be able to find it, but really it comes down to just being somebody with a disability, but also being somebody from the South Asian community. Really, this is what my non-Googleable, like, why do I do it? But after this, it will be probably on Google. But a combination of coming from both those communities, because both communities, I feel like, have always been underrepresented. And when you think about being in, we think of a Venn diagram, when you're in the same section, that is even more. I'll be honest, I barely know any South Asians with a disability.
Yeah.
Most of them, because I feel like there's a lot of stigma in the community, and there's also just an idea of when we talk about narratives of the community, people with disabilities normally don't fit in to
Right.
that narrative. Okay, and I know this is really stereotypical, but like, okay, you want to be a doctor, you
Yeah.
want to be a lawyer, you want to be an engineer. And I think when we talk about the non-Googleable perspective, it's really about understanding that that's where I come from. That's what drives me to do this work, because I'm very fortunate.
Yeah.
Cerebral palsy is a spectrum of things. I'm able to go to Cornell. I'm able to travel to different places. I'm able to do strategy work for campaign.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a chance I wouldn't have been able to move without a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
There's a chance that I would be nonverbal. There's
Yeah.
a chance that I would not be able to live on my own in my messy dorm right now and just have that college experience.
Yeah.
So I feel really uniquely positioned where I do have that voice, and
Yeah.
I want to speak out for those who don't have that voice.
Yeah. That is really inspiring, and I'm glad you shared it with that perspective, because even as you were telling it, I could see, even in myself, I felt inspired. You're touching on a really important topic that a lot of times we have this inner voice, and maybe sometimes it's from externally, but let's just say we hear this message from somewhere. And sometimes the message goes like, I'm too old for that. And you insert the blank. I want to run a marathon. I want to climb a mountain. I want to start a new business. I'm too old for that. Maybe another narrative might be, I can't get in shape because I'm too busy with the kids. Or another narrative might be my gender. I'm male or female, or I'm South Asian, or some other type of identity or label that we associate with becomes a box, a limitation for us, right? Or, I have an accent, or I wasn't born in this country, or whatever. You get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
And you talked about, you so nicely and so succinctly and descriptively said there's this Venn diagram. On one side of the Venn diagram, there's South Asian identity, which we all share, a lot of us share. The other side of the Venn diagram is a disability, which is cerebral palsy. And there's a spectrum, and you're on a spectrum that allows you a lot of things. You're grateful for it and things like that. But in between there are two labels, and those labels are not defining you to the fullest extent of your South Asianness, which is you're working in an American country, in an American democratic politics and things like that. You have a disability, and it's not holding you back. What would you say to people that are much older than you, much more established, much more wealthier, educated, and things like that, who tell you, or you hear in my voice, a limitation that is purely identity based? For example, I can't do that, dot, dot.
It's all a state of mind. And I'm going to be completely honest with
Yeah.
you. As much as I want to run the world one day, there are days that I say, oh, because of these identities I have, I can't do this. I can't apply to this club. I can't. But it's remembering that it's all up here. And for the people listening, I'm pointing to my head. It's all in the mind. It really is what you can and cannot do. Because, again, going back to kind of the past 4 years, there's a lot of people that might have said, oh, you're too young to run for a delegate. Oh, you're too young to work on a campaign. But I told them, for lack of a better term, I said, shut up, and then did it anyways. So regardless of what it is,
Yeah.
it's just understanding that you have the willpower to
Yeah.
do it, putting your mind to it,
Yeah.
and then executing.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm going to be a little stereotypical here, right? I believe there's such a thing as a proud desi uncle. Have you guys experienced any of these people? So, right. And so when I hear and I'm listening to this, and I think I'm in the uncle stage clearly now, right? So I'm really talking about myself. When I hear that you tell me it's in the mind and it's willpower, and I can tell those people to shut up, I agree. I can tell anyone who tells me I can't do something, I don't want to listen to you. But the problem that I see is when that voice is in your own head. And I think my ego tells me I know better. I'm outside, I've got success, my life is this way. And yeah, I know I can do that, but I don't want to. And it's still being governed by that identity. And I'm afraid to admit that it's fear or ego or something else that's driving that, right? I can justify it away that I'm busy, not today. I've got to focus on other things. I had a hard day, or my job is really stable. Why should I start a business that I want to? It's not going to be worth it. How did you learn and how do you teach people this idea of quieting your own mind and still doing it despite our tendency to catastrophize things and be like, oh, if I start something new, if I go for a run, I'll break my foot?
Yeah, and I'll be completely honest. I might not have a full answer to this because it's still something I'm learning myself, like going through day to day. Especially like at a university like Cornell, there are a lot of opportunities, but it's also super competitive. Now, like in high school, everybody, some people don't care, some people care, but now here everybody cares. Everyone's here because they want to get the best. But I would say it really is, and this is something I've been thinking, and probably too theoretical for a 19-year-old kid to pondering. But what I tell my friends when they're like, Avi, lately it's been relationship stuff, Avi this, Avi that. It's like, listen, life is so short. Like, if you think about it, we have 80 years.
Yeah.
Hopefully 100, let's just say 80. In the grand scheme of things, everything passes. Everything. Oh, this is the college I go to. Oh, this is the grade I got on a test. And really, it's understanding that I often think if I'm on my deathbed, whenever I have a big decision, I'm like, if I'm on my deathbed and I look back at this time, will I regret not making that change? I recently went to Maryland, and it doesn't have to be big also.
Yeah.
I recently begged my mom to let me drive from Ithaca, New York to Maryland this weekend. And part of me is like, oh, it's stupid, why are you going? But the other part of me is like, I know now looking back in my old age, I'm going to be so happy I went. It was my first solo road trip. I drove like 5 hours and I got to meet some great people. So really it's thinking like long term because it's so easy to get bogged down by details currently.
I love it. I love it. That is such a great answer, and I tend to live my life like that. It's almost like a regret-based life. Like, would you regret this or not? And
Yeah.
I try not to have too many what ifs with my life, and that way has served me incredibly well. I went to law school. I moved to DC on a what if. I went to law school on a what if. We started the podcast on a what if, and a lot of things. I'm trying to avoid having that what if moment on my deathbed. The thing I want to say is congratulate you because at 19, I thought I was going to live forever. I didn't think about
Yeah.
having regrets or anything like that. So you are much wiser than I ever was or believed at.
Yeah.
I have to give credit where it's deserved. My parents, especially my dad. My dad's really into heartfulness and meditation, so I'll come to him with the issue, and he'll remind me this when I'm struggling with it.
Amazing.
So wise. I think that so many of us, first of all, get too caught up in the moment, just like you said, right? And we want immediate answers. We want certainty with those choices, right?
Yeah.
Do I order pizza or pasta? And I know that I like pizza and I know that I like pasta. And so those two choices seem safe. I'm going to stick to those two choices.
Yeah.
But when it comes to ordering something new, well, I don't know. I don't know if I'll like it. What if I insert whatever reason. But we do that with everything in life. We want certainty. It's what we crave.
Just a quick example, even like I'm at Cornell now. I'm loving it. I got into Cornell. I had to come, but I ED'd. Early decision is binding, so if you get in, you have to come. And it's like, I told my mom after I got the acceptance letter, like, I'm scared. Like, I'm going out of state. If you talk to me in junior year, I thought I would be at the University of Georgia as a business major. Coming here has been the best decision of my life. You have to take those risks.
It's just that reflection
Yeah.
of what it means to actually live a life where you don't have as many regrets and you're showing up fully happy with your choices, owning your choices, feeling good about those choices. That is, I think, where Dinesh and I see is people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, even older, our parents who are, like your grandparents' age. And there's a life of regret. And there's a lot of, what will people say? What will people do? I can't because this, that, the other. And it is because of that uncertainty that it holds us back. And then we think like, oh, if I can just get here, then, I'll get what I'm looking for. And it doesn't come, right? That fulfillment doesn't come unless you take the uncertain chance, right? That opportunity cannot present itself otherwise. And I love that you've demonstrated that so beautifully. I'm actually curious because the listeners know I do a lot of yoga. A lot of how I actually make decisions is, does this feel good in my body? To say yes to this or to say no to this? Does it physically feel good? And I'm curious if, since you said your dad is big into meditation and things, is that something that you also use to know? How do you know, other than, am I going to regret this on my deathbed? What other tools do you use to help you make decisions?
That really is the big one, but kind of for the smaller, it's just like living every day to the fullest. And I'll be honest, like somebody listening to this, I'm lucky if 30% of the decisions I make, I always remember these principles. Like, I try always to live by it, but life gets hard. I mean, let's be honest, when I'm have a prelim, by the way, they don't call it midterms at Cornell, they call it prelims, have a test, a paper due. Like, it's hard to remember. Oh, life is. Like, I don't want to live regret. So I think it's just, to go back to your question, I think it's really just, besides deathbed, living in the present. Having the idea, like, how can I maximize my happiness now? And I said happiness because happy and human. Like, why live in stress, anger, anguish when you could, regardless of what state you're in right now, like, you could choose to be happy.
I love that. So here's my question, actually. because a lot of people would look around the country and say, oh my gosh, this is happening, that's happening, right? And it's no matter who's president, it's easy to catastrophize and say so and so's in charge, and now because of that, look at all the terrible things that are happening. Or you look globally, right? Oh, this is what's happening. What would you say to those people who seem to be stuck in what, like this narrative that seems so big when you question things like healthcare and women's rights and representation and freedom of speech, right? All of these big things. Sometimes people say, well, but you choose to be happy in the moment. Like, how can you say that? Because look at all the crap that's around, right? What's your answer?
Try to organize based off happiness. And I'll be honest, happiness isn't always in the present, but it's the idea. Like, let's talk about Kamala Harris's campaign for a minute. Her idea of joy, if you are in campaign circles, the joyful Kamala was known as the joyful warrior. And it's a lot of shit is happening right now in this second administration, and it's only been 2 weeks. But the minute we lose our happiness for the fight, we become susceptible to fear mongering. We become susceptible to anger, terror. And this is what I try to, when I remember, like, I felt like shit on election night. I actually blew up at a friend at a Waffle House at 2 a.m. on election night, because they were saying something about why she lost, and I'm like, just shut up. I was so mad, and I look every day and I see something new and I get mad, but then it's remembering how happy we can be in 4 years, how happy we could be when we take back the house, how happy we can be when we have a government that is working, and it's knowing I want to be happy, so I gotta work to be happy.
Yeah.
Gosh, so powerful.
Do you think happiness, in the way a lot of us think about it, is an attainable destination, or is it, as it is in the Constitution, it's the pursuit of happiness? Is happiness in the pursuit of happiness?
We're getting very theoretical,
Yeah.
so I'm just trying to think before I speak.
Well, I'll tell you. Sorry, let me explain my question a little bit more. Seema touched on, sometimes you get into university, or you get a promotion, or you buy the house, or you buy the car, or the thing that you desired, and mistakenly confuse comfort for happiness, right? And then after a certain time, the hedonic treadmill kicks in, and that thing is no longer bringing you the level of happiness, and you need the dopamine hit from something else. So you're looking for bigger or better, right? Or the next promotion, or things like that. And I recently have become more parsing and nuanced of that. And I find that let's just use the podcast. Having the podcast at one time I thought would make me happy. I would have a podcast, right? But now the anticipation of the conversation with you is the happiness. And then the anticipation of the next conversation, or the next guest, or then where this podcast can lead, is where I draw the happiness from. And when you said the anticipation, or the pursuit of the next 4 years, or taking back the house, I wonder if, as humans, our condition isn't to stop at the goal, which is, let's say, in 4 years the administration changes, but now that the administration changes, what can we do? And that's where we draw the progress, is where we draw our happiness from.
Yeah, I would think happiness to me is unlimited. I mean,
Yeah.
there's never such a thing as, okay, you are happy, and there's no more happier you could get. So I know, kind of to answer your question, I think it really comes down to that pursuit of happiness. And the idea that you could always be happier than you are. I mean, it's something like on my best days, I try to remember there's always a up,
Yeah.
and you could continue to climb and strive up for as long as you want.
Yeah. That's so
Yeah.
good. That is so good.
The other thought that comes to mind for me is when people look around and they say, "Oh, here's what's happening." There's this tendency for us to make that permanent, even though we know it's not. So I look outside, oh, it's sunny, and I know that nighttime is coming, but then sun will come again, right?
Yeah,
But that is something that's fairly obvious. But when it's things like global warming or education policy or any of those things, we have this tendency to think, oh my gosh, this is happening. And now this is just how it's going to be forever. And then that steals, any potential for us to even feel motivated to pursue happiness.
I personally, if I'm ever a father to a daughter or even a son, I will never want them to live in a world where somebody can have an abortion. If I ever am, when I am in my old age, I don't want to be living in a desert in New York. Global warming has to stop. When I am, right, not even when I'm older, I want kids to stop dying in schools, and just because some guy who should not be having a gun has a gun. And I say that because it is easy to say, like, oh, like, what's happening, we give up. But the fact is, when we give up, we're also giving up on the idea of America. I mean, the great experiment. Experiments don't always go up and up. You know, when we talk about the scientific model, you have like 5 steps. Sometimes you're on the 4th step and you realize the first step was flawed and you have to come back. But we have to always keep moving forward. And yes, we will go back. In my lifetime, we made 20 steps forward and now we're 30 steps back. So we're at a deficit of 10 steps. Right now, I'm focusing on getting back to just doing 10 steps where we started and then continuing that progress.
Avi, if you get to deliver a brutally honest State of the Union address to every person that ever doubted you, underestimated you, or pitied you, what would you say?
It's so easy to think somebody can't achieve because they have something, they have a disability, they aren't the right skin color, they aren't the right gender, they aren't the right sexuality. I stand before you, the nation, today to say I'm a testament. Anybody can do anything. I went, and this goes to Cornell University. Any person, any study. There's no such thing as a person can't, but a person hasn't done yet. So remember not to doubt anybody, because we all are on this earth for a reason and we all will do amazing things. And amazing might look different. Everybody has their own goal line, but everybody gets to that goal line.
Amazing. Amazing. Avi, we are so glad that you took some time out of your day to spend time with us. You're incredibly inspiring. Neha was 100% right. Our audience is going to love listening to you. You're a 19-year-old college student. You're living the life. I remember I went to the University of Florida, and I know you're in Georgia, and you can probably guess what it was like to be at the University of Florida. It was the best time of my life. So you're having the best time of your life. Um, through all of your experiences related to your work, your school, or anything like that, tell us one thing that you know that if our listeners were to do today, it would make their life better. It could be anything.
Do something from your childhood.
Mm.
I bet you it will just raise your spirits. I'm taking a bowling class at Cornell. They make us take 2 PE classes. I'm not bowled since I was in Tucson, which was like 12 years ago. I recently went home for winter break and bowled with my sister. And I'm loving it. I just get to bowl, remember what it was like to be 6 or 7 and have mom go to the bowling alley, buy me some food, and play a good game. So do something from your childhood.
That's good. That's a really good one.
Yeah. It's one we always say we don't have time for, right? Because we're serious and we're
Yeah.
grown-ups. But I think if you want to actually get further doing what you're doing in your serious work, you should make time for fun because, so
Exactly.
we play something called Ask It Forward on the show. The last guest who was on the show didn't know who we would be talking to next, what we would be talking about, when we would be recording, nothing. But they've left a question that came from their heart for you. And you get to answer that question, and then you get to ask your question that you want to ask of the next guest. This question that was left to you was by Dr. Deep Shah, who is a pediatric dentist in Philadelphia. His question to you was, if you could wake up with the ability to master any skill or talent in the world, what would you choose and why?
Okay. This is a very good question. Any skill or talent? So I would like to master any test, like any subject, anything. I know this might be a boring response, but I like, it's always like, if you have any superpower, take the superpower that gives you more superpowers. So
love it.
if I knew how to master every test, I could learn everything else in the world.
Oh my gosh.
I love it.
You want to know it all. That's so good.
Exactly.
Under there is a thirst for knowledge, a curiosity that I can respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that too. Sometimes that's a hard question for me. Okay, so that means that it's your turn to ask it forward. What is the question you would like to ask for the guest that follows you?
Okay, so given that I do a lot of political organizing, I gotta keep it in that realm. My question for them is, what is the time that they actively broke the rules, and a time that they actively broke the rules but they believe it was for the right cause?
Ooh.
Wow,
I don't
that's a
think
good
we've
one.
ever had anyone ask something even close to that.
That's good. That's going to be a tough one for all the rule followers out there.
Yeah.
We don't have very many ways to say thank you. We can say thank you for spending some time with us, but one of the ways we also want to say thank you is by giving you the opportunity to share an organization that is near and dear to your heart. And on behalf of you, Seema and I and any future sponsors will be making a charitable contribution on your behalf as a way to say thank you. We've benefited from your conversation. You'll benefit from being on the podcast. Our listeners will benefit from hearing our discussion, but we hope also people that don't even know that the podcast exists can benefit in some way from us saying thank you to you. So
I think just the next time the election rolls around, a young person running for office. I'm only talking to you today because I had people who trusted in me and my vision, and sometimes candidates don't have that. and I know you, Dinesh, and you, Seema, are amazing. So I'll let you guys figure out who that person is, but I know you'll choose a great one. There are so many.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I have to ask you, do you have aspirations to run for office?
I have a firm belief in when we talk about the idea of destiny, we talk about how you have it's kind of predefined for you.
Yeah.
So to be truthful, I don't know. Like I when I first started in politics, I said no, I'll never run for office.
Mm,
Um but if I come after my undergrad, I'm in the community and I feel like there's a need for a leader like me and something that only I could offer,
mm.
I'm never going to rule that out.
I love it. Good stuff. Good stuff.
I think that's so wise. Man, that was powerful. I think we often say no to so many things preemptively. We cut ourselves off from really being able to make the impact that we're looking to make. So this is fantastic.
Yeah.
Avi, I want, and we want listeners to be able to connect with you in ways that are meaningful for you. Where can our audience find you if they want to reach out, if they have questions?
So I'm very fortunate. I don't know how this happened. SEO algorithms are really good to me. So when you type Avi Dhyani up in Google, you'll see photos of me, you'll see my LinkedIn. So feel free to look me up on LinkedIn, just Avi Dhyani. LinkedIn, you could put Cornell, you should be able to find me. Instagram is avidhyani.official.
Yeah.
Also avidhyani.political. Some of my friends are like, why do you post so many political stuff on your main Instagram? So I'm not going to stop, by the way, for those friends, but I am trying to go more, have a political account and have an official account.
Thank you so much for making the time today. This was exactly what my soul needed to hear. As I've navigated this week and look ahead to the weeks ahead, this is like the universe, sending me every inspiration that I knew I needed and I didn't know I needed. So listeners, I know you're going to get a lot out of it too. Thank you so much for your time, Avi.
Thank you guys for having me.